"Move along, janitor," one of the academy cadets scoffed, his polished boots squeaking against the marble floor. Laughter followed, sharp and unkind, bouncing off the glass trophy cases that glittered with medals, citations, and relics of forgotten wars. But then, silence fell. At the far end of the corridor, a man in a dark naval coat stopped mid-stride. His chest bore stars that marked decades of command. His hand lifted slowly, deliberately, pointing not at the cadet who had mocked, but at the woman with the feather duster in her hand. His voice was low, commanding, unshakable. "Ivory Raven," he said. "Greenlight." The cadets froze. The woman turned her head, the faintest trace of weariness in her eyes, and in that suspended moment, everything, the mockery, the power imbalance, the silence of the crowd shifted. She had always been invisible here. That was the comfort of her job, dusting forgotten display cases in endless corridors of a Naval Academy that no longer remembered her name. Her uniform now was gray coveralls, not the starched whites of her past. She moved like a shadow between gleaming brass plaques and framed photographs of men who once commanded fleets. But beneath those quiet movements, she carried a history stitched into her very skin. Her right hand trembled slightly as she dusted, the tremor a lingering gift from shrapnel that had nearly taken her arm. Her hearing in the left ear was gone, lost the day a helicopter went down in the desert. Rotors screaming before the crash silenced them forever. No one asked about her limp. No one cared. And so, when the cadets smirked or dismissed her as nothing more than a cleaner, she remained silent. The silence was her shield, her last uniform. Years before, she had worn another name, Lieutenant Commander Elara Vance. Call sign, Ivory Raven. Her squadron still whispered of her, in places the cadets would never walk, hangars in the desert, windswept carriers at sea, graveyards where flags covered polished wood. She had flown missions that never appeared in public records, escorted convoys that returned only half full, and buried friends whose faces never made the news. She had been decorated, yes, but she had also been broken. When her aircraft was torn apart over hostile skies, she had carried her co-pilot's body back through fire and steel, refusing to let the flames consume him. For that, she received a medal. But what she truly carried was silence, the names of missions erased, the weight of lives lost, the unbearable absence that greeted her when she returned home. And when her service ended, when the military wrote her a thank you letter and filed her away, she took the only work she could find, sweeping, dusting, polishing the halls of a place that no longer remembered she had once trained here. The cadets' laughter had been cruel, yes, but it was ordinary cruelty, the kind she had weathered for years. What none of them expected was the Admiral. He was a man whose presence altered air itself, years of authority carved into the lines of his face. He did not speak often, and when he did, the weight of command followed his words. And so when he said, "Ivory Raven, Greenlight," every cadet in the hallway stiffened, as if the floor itself had tilted beneath them. The woman's hand stopped mid-motion on the glass. Dust clung to the feathered edge of her duster. Her eyes, pale and sharp as frost, lifted and locked onto his. A ripple of unease swept through the corridor. The cadets glanced at one another, their arrogance evaporating in the heat of confusion. Ivory Raven was no janitor's name. Greenlight was no casual phrase. Something unspoken filled the silence, something older, heavier than the cadets' shallow pride. The Admiral remembered her. He remembered the night when half his fleet was pinned in enemy waters, and a single pilot had flown into chaos to draw fire away. He remembered the coded voice over comms, steady, fearless, carrying men through impossible darkness. That voice had saved ships and lives and him. And now she was here, forgotten by the world, mocked by children who thought valor was a medal to be polished, not a burden carried in silence. The Admiral did not raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Stand," he said. The command was not directed at her, but at everyone else. Slowly, cadets straightened, their boots clicking into line, eyes widened, breaths hitched. They understood now, though not fully, not yet, that the woman before them was not dusting trophies because she lacked worth, but because the world had no place for its quiet heroes. The Admiral stepped closer. "This corridor holds relics," he said, gesturing at the cases. "But none so living as the one you mocked." His words sank like anchors. Shame colored the cadets' faces. Their silence was thick, uncomfortable, a silence they had never known until this moment. Elara said nothing. She did not defend herself. She did not boast of her past. Her silence was her power. And in that silence, truth spoke louder than words. One cadet swallowed hard, his arrogance dissolving into unease. Another lowered her gaze, the bravado gone from her posture. The hallway that had echoed with cruel laughter now felt like a tribunal, the weight of history pressing down on young shoulders. And still Elara remained unmoving, the duster at her side, her eyes steady. The Admiral's voice carried again, softer this time, but sharper for it. "Respect is not owed to rank, it is owed to sacrifice. And she has given more than you will ever comprehend." He paused. Then, turning his gaze fully upon Elara, he spoke words that struck like lightning. "The Ivory Raven still flies. The mission never ended." It was not ceremony, not performance. It was recognition, rare, raw, overdue. The cadets shifted uncomfortably, caught between shame and awe. And then, slowly, something began to change. One by one, boots clicked together, shoulders straightened. Heads bowed not to the Admiral, but to her. A line of respect, unbroken and silent, stretched down the hallway. Elara stood in the midst of it, her chest tight, her throat burning with words she would not speak. She had thought her story buried, her name erased. And yet here it was, called back into light by a single command. In that charged silence, two truths crystallized. First, the cadets had seen their arrogance for what it was. They had mocked what they could not comprehend, and in doing so, had exposed the smallness of their own vision. Second, Elara's silence was not weakness. It was strength. She had carried pain without display, borne memory without demanding acknowledgement, and chosen humility when others would have sought glory. And now, standing in a corridor lined with trophies, the true victor was not in glass cases. It was here, breathing, alive. The Admiral inclined his head, just slightly, a gesture of respect between warriors. His eyes met hers, and though words were unnecessary, their meaning was clear. "You were never forgotten." And for the first time in years, Elara allowed herself a breath that felt lighter, freer. There are moments that linger beyond time, moments that become legend, not because they are written down, but because they are witnessed. This was one of them. Cadets who had come to sneer left with a memory that would follow them into their own commands. They would remember the woman with the duster, the silence that silenced them, the revelation that honor does not glitter in trophy cases. It walks quietly among us, unseen, until called by name. And unspoken, but resounding, silence is the loudest honor. When the Admiral finally turned and walked away, the cadets remained at attention, not daring to move until Elara herself did. She lifted the duster once more, resumed her work as though nothing had changed. Yet everything had. The dust on the glass gleamed brighter in the new light. And so, in a hallway filled with trophies. The greatest honor was not behind glass. It was a woman with trembling hands, steady eyes, and a silence that spoke louder than metals. Sometimes, the truest heroes are not the ones on stage or in photographs. They are the ones who sweep quietly in the background, carrying histories too heavy to be displayed. This story is a reminder. Honor does not fade with time, and respect is the least we owe those who have given everything. Wherever you're watching from, share your thoughts below. What does silent strength mean to you? And if this story moved you, subscribe for more stories that honor the heroes the world too often forgets. Because sometimes, the loudest voice in the room is silence.